Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining me today. We're going to dive into a truly fascinating philosophical essay by Su Feng called A Life Without Regrets. In this session, we're tackling a universal human struggle, right? One that touches literally every single one of us at some point, that heavy, often silent burden of living with remorse. Now, instead of a boring standard agenda today, we're going on a bit of a journey together. And the whole goal of this journey is to answer just one profoundly difficult question. Which way actually leads to a life without regrets? Sounds almost impossible to answer, doesn't it? But stick with me here because the framework we're about to unpack is incredibly practical. Let's start by acknowledging just how incredibly rare it is for anyone, and I mean anyone, to genuinely utter this phrase on their deathbed, "I regret nothing in my life." Think about that for a second. From the most powerful imperial families in history down to the poorest masses, from highbrow dignitaries to everyday folks just keeping up with pop culture, almost no one ever leaves the mortal world saying those words. It's kind of the ultimate elusive human achievement. And that brings us to the core problem. Almost everyone leaves the world with emotional scars. Despite the constant, dauntless efforts of humanity, despite philosophers, religious leaders, and politicians constantly trying to navigate us toward this optimum life, we still end up scarred. Regrets, remorse, distress, they just seem to naturally interweave into the whole human experience as we advance through our years. Okay, let's dive into this reality check real quick, because this is where the author's own journey gets incredibly relatable. Back in the early 1980s, Xu Fang wrote to a friend saying that life really had three main pursuits: health, wealth, and freedom. Makes perfect sense, right? But here's the catch. Even after achieving those goals, he found he was still far, far from a regret-free life. Actually, his initial worldly pursuits completely failed to cure those existential regrets. Turns out, you simply cannot buy, earn, or exercise your way out of remorse. No way. So how do we actually find spiritual peace? Well, the author realized a true life without regrets requires an approach grounded in these 5 ideals: connecting to life, accepting fate, cheerful labor, acting by nature, and doing your best. This right here is our roadmap for today. All right, let's move right into our foundation. Ideal 1, connecting to eternity. This step requires us to shift our perspective pretty drastically and look far beyond our painfully short mortal existence. The author argues that no matter the hardships or the splendors we experience, connecting our individual lives to the source life paints a magnificent picture. It's like when we ground our lives in eternity, our temporary worldly suffering and even our quick passing suddenly feels so much smaller and far less tragic. We realize we're connected to this continuous, majestic whole, which immediately starts washing away those worldly regrets. And that leads us perfectly into Ideal 2, accepting fate and the Tao of heaven. Now, this ideal is all about how we view the inherent circumstances we're born into, the things we literally have absolutely zero control over. The text gives us this beautiful comparison: a robust eagle soaring through the sky versus an agile swallow flying under the eaves. Neither is better or worse in the grand scale of things. The mighty eagle and the humble swallow both have their perfect designated places in nature. They don't envy each other, they simply exist, perfectly adapted to exactly who they are. We see the exact same thing in the plant world too: a prominent, beautiful peony versus a simple blade of grass. Whether you're born into an imperial palace with every advantage in the world or a humble village with nothing, you can still gracefully appreciate the sun, the moon, and the rain. So the really crucial point here is that by embracing your exact place in the world, you stop complaining about the Tao of Heaven being unfair, and you finally let go of that toxic jealousy that breeds so much regret. Moving right along, we arrive at Ideal 3, cheerful labor. This step asks us to find true joy in our daily, unglamorous toil, rather than constantly striving for some impossible escape. Xu Feng gives us some very clear parameters for this. Act like a busy bee, working cheerfully. Don't expect extreme riches, and hey, don't expect great fame either. Just let your sweat drip right into the soil along your natural path. The ultimate goal isn't to become a billionaire or some huge celebrity. The goal is the simple, profound pride of being able to look back at your efforts and honestly say, "I have tried." If you can confidently say that, you leave absolutely no room for regret in your work life. Let's step into Ideal 4, acting in accordance with your nature. This section presents a remarkably strong warning against the dangerous trap of imitation. I absolutely love this food metaphor from the essay to explain it. We've got the beautiful tastes and colors of rare delicacies on one hand, and the rich nutrition of plain tea and simple food on the other. Mimicking others is just foolish, because both the rich urban lifestyles and the poor country lifestyles possess their own completely unique beauty and advantages. A simple life has deep, grounding nutrition, just like a wealthy life has vivid colors. You really don't need to eat someone else's meal to be fulfilled. So, I want to turn the mirror directly onto you for a second. Think about these rules. Do not force yourself, do not follow fashion, and do not compare yourself with others. Ask yourself right now, where in your life are you currently forcing yourself into unnatural molds just to fit in? To live without regrets, you've got to dream your own dreams, love what you love, hate what you hate, and treat yourself with total sincerity. Which brings us to our final step. Ideal 5, doing your best without unbearable burdens. Now, this ideal explores our deep, often very stressful duties toward our families and society. The essay shares this beautiful quote, "Even one's fingers are of different lengths, and weeds will grow in flower gardens." Man, that is incredibly freeing. It explains that parents simply cannot expect absolute perfection from their children. We all want our kids to be wildly successful and for everything to go exactly as planned. But reality is reality. Weeds are going to grow. Doing your absolute best to raise them, regardless of the ultimate outcome or if they end up resenting you, well, that ensures you hold no regrets. And honestly, that applies to all of our obligations. Fulfilling your duties also means knowing your limits. Never carry more burdens than you can bear, nor force yourself to do the impossible. Acting gracefully within your true capabilities is a huge, vital part of this philosophy. If you stretch yourself until you break, trying to fix everything for everyone, you aren't doing anyone any favors, and you're literally only inviting regret right into your life. Let's zoom out now and look at the big picture. The imperfect, regret-free life. Having walked through this 5-step framework, the text leaves us with this grounding thought to sort of tie it all together. All things are strewn in random order, but at distinct levels by the greatest creator, or, nature, depending on how you view it. The core takeaway here is that whether your life brings favor or adversity, whether your path is bright or completely dark, obeying these natural arrangements and advancing along the track of human nature is the absolute key to peace. Fulfilling your basic human obligations without forcing the impossible, that is enough. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought directly from the text. As there is no perfect life under heaven, why should we pursue one? I want you to really think about that for a second. How much of your current stress and your potential for future regret is tied up in an endless chase for an impossible perfection? Stop chasing perfection. Start living your nature. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this framework helps you build your own life without regrets.